while the alien hunter chose him instead of killing him changes everything. The sky was a permanent bruise. Violet clouds churned overhead, flashing with silent lightning that bathed the shattered landscape in brief, ghostly light. The air was thick with grit and the metallic tang of old firestorms. Once, this had been a thriving colony world, gardens domed under crystal, oceans tamed by terraformers, cities stretching like glass across the horizon. Now it was a graveyard. Lieutenant Marcus Hale tightened the strap of his fractured helmet and scanned the horizon from the rocky ridge where he crouched. The scanner on his wrist flickered, half dead, but it still showed movement. Not wildlife. Not scavenger drones. Something heavier. Deliberate. They were back. He muttered a curse under his breath. He'd outlasted famine, disease, and the planet's own madness, but the hunts never stopped. They wanted him dead, needed him dead. A war can't be called finished when even a single soldier survives. Marcus touched the dog tags beneath his chest plate, the only piece of his uniform still intact. So many names, so many voices already gone. He wasn't sure anymore if he carried them for comfort or for weight. A distant roar echoed through the canyons. Not a beast. A ship. Marcus's jaw tightened. He knew that sound. He'd heard it too many times, the hunter's arrival. The vessel descended like a blade cutting the sky, sleek and black, thrumming with restrained fury. It landed in a storm of dust and static, its hull glowing faintly as if the ship itself were alive. From its belly emerged the one he had come to fear more than the planet itself. Commander Soraka. She was taller than any human, armored in plates of dark silver that shimmered like wet stone. Her face was sharp, symmetrical in a way that felt as though it had been carved rather than born, her eyes molten amber. She moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. And she was here for him. Again. Marcus had seen her once before, too close, during the last sweep of survivors. She had torn through his unit like a storm-given flesh, every strike precise, every movement effortless. He had barely escaped that night, and he knew she hadn't forgotten. Now she was hunting him alone. Human, her voice carried through the canyon, amplified by some device in her armor. It was smooth, resonant, but with an edge of hunger. You cannot run forever. This world will kill you if I do not. End your struggle. Face me. Marcus gritted his teeth. He wasn't suicidal, but surrender wasn't in his blood either. He slipped down from the ridge, boots crunching against the gravel. He had no squad. No reinforcements. Just his wits, a half-charged rifle, and the terrain. But if she wanted him, she'd bleed for it. The first clash came at dusk. He laid traps the way his grandfather once taught him to set snares in the forests of Earth, simple, crude, but effective when paired with patience. Weighted debris rigged with scavenged plasma cells. Razor-sharp shards balanced where the wind would carry them. A canyon path seeded with explosives. When Soraka followed the trail, her predatory eyes narrowing, Marcus struck. The canyon walls erupted in fire, collapsing stone and dust around her. She staggered, shield flaring, armor sparking under the blast. For a moment, Marcus thought he had won. Then she stepped through the flames. Not unscathed, but alive. Her blade hummed to life, a crescent of searing blue light that cut through the haze. Clever, she said, her voice like silk dragged across steel. But not enough. Marcus fired, bolts of plasma streaking against her shield. Each shot rattled his shoulder, his rifle overheating. She advanced step by step, unstoppable, until his weapon gave a dying hiss and fell silent. He reached for a blade, but she was faster. In a blur, she struck, and he blocked with nothing but a length of steel scavenged from the wreckage. The clash rang like thunder, the impact driving him to his knees. Yet he did not break. For an instant, their eyes locked. Hers, sharp with hunger and certainty. His, raw with fury but alive with something rarer, refusal. "You should be dead," she hissed. "Get in line," Marcus spat back. She hesitated. Not long, just a flicker, but long enough. Marcus twisted, yanking free, and hurled himself off the ledge into the shadows below. When the dust cleared, he was gone. High above, Soraka stood on the shattered ridge, her blade dimming. She should have been furious. No prey had ever evaded her this long. No human should have been capable of withstanding her strike. And yet, her lips curved in something dangerously close to a smile. This was no longer a hunt. It was a game. And for the first time in years, Soraka realized she was enjoying herself. The days blurred into a cycle of pursuit and escape. Soraka's vessel circled the canyons like a vulture, scanning, hunting, always just behind him. Marcus lived on the edge of exhaustion, sleeping in fractured bursts, scavenging what little food and water the ruined planet allowed. Yet each time she closed in, he found a way to slip free. It was not luck. It was stubbornness sharpened into instinct. He mapped every gully, memorized every fault line, and turned rusted wreckage into traps that would make a demolitions team proud. And when she forced him into open combat, he fought like a man who refused to die quietly. On the seventh night, she cornered him at the skeleton of a collapsed refinery. The twisted girders rose like the bones of some ancient beast, shadows shifting with every flicker of lightning above. Marcus was waiting. She advanced, blade humming, her amber eyes glowing in the dark. "You waste yourself, human. Prolonging this changes nothing." "Funny," Marcus called back, crouched behind a broken support. "You sound almost tired." He triggered the detonator. The refinery groaned, and then collapsed. Rusted towers snapped, beams rained down, and fireballs ignited from leaking plasma cells. The ground shook as the entire structure came down on top of her. Marcus shielded his face from the blast. For a heartbeat, he allowed himself to breathe. Maybe this time, it had worked. Then a shadow rose from the flames. Soraka staggered, her armor cracked and sparking, her shield shredded, blood seeping black and luminous from her shoulder. But she did not fall. She fixed her eyes on him. Even injured, she was terrifying, majestic in her fury. "You fight like prey, pretending to be predator," she said, voice ragged but steady. "Yet you are still standing. Why?" Marcus didn't answer. He fired instead, bolts striking her chest and forcing her back a step. His rifle sizzled, overheating again, and he cursed under his breath. She surged forward. Her blade slashed the air, close enough to sear his cheek with its heat. He ducked, rolled, and scrambled through wreckage. Her strike shattered metal inches behind him. The shockwave hurled him against a girder. His vision swam. And then, silence. Marcus blinked through the smoke. Soraka lay on the ground, her blade extinguished, her body half crushed beneath debris. She struggled, but her movements were weak. Pinned. Vulnerable. Marcus raised his sidearm. One shot, and it would be over. The galaxy would never know he had been the last human alive, but at least he would live one more day without her shadow looming above him. His finger hovered on the trigger. But as he stared, something twisted in his chest. She was his enemy, yes. A hunter who had slaughtered his people, who had hunted him like an animal. But she was alive. Breathing. Bleeding. And killing her now, helpless like this, felt wrong. If I kill her now, he thought, then I'm no different than they were. With a grunt, Marcus shoved the sidearm back into its holster. Instead of finishing her, he grabbed a length of steel and used it as a lever, pushing the wreckage just enough for her to breathe more freely. Soraka blinked, stunned. Her lips parted in disbelief. "Why, would you spare me?" Marcus gave a bitter smile. "Because I'm human. And maybe that still means something." He turned and limped into the storm before she could answer. For a long moment, Soraka remained where she lay, staring into the storm-torn sky. Her wound throbbed, her pride burned, but something else gnawed at her. Confusion. Humans were weak, desperate creatures. She had been taught this since her first trial as a child. Yet this soldier, had outlasted her traps, scarred her armor, and now spared her life. Not prey. Not a predator. Something else. She touched the wound at her shoulder, her own blood warm against her fingers, and whispered into the storm, "What are you?" The planet awoke. Marcus had always known the world was hostile, but he hadn't realized it had been designed that way. Long before the war ended, the Empire seeded its surface with living weapons, creatures that fed on radiation, adapted to storms, and thrived in environments that would kill a human in minutes. They had been dormant, slumbering beneath the cracked earth. But the bombardments, the collapsing structures, the endless fights between him and Soraka had stirred them. And now they hunted. It began with sound. A low rumble beneath the earth, like the planet itself was breathing. Then the chitter of claws, the metallic shriek of armored limbs. Marcus froze as the ground split, and something massive pulled itself free from the fissure. Its body was a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal, scales glistening with sickly light, jaws lined with rows of crystalline teeth. Dozens of insect-like legs carried it forward with terrifying speed. Behind it, smaller creatures swarmed, each one no less deadly. Marcus fired until his rifle screamed with heat, bolts sparking harmlessly off their armored hides. He cursed and ran, boots pounding through the wreckage. Behind him came another sound, the roar of plasma fire, not from his weapon, but from hers. Soraka. She descended from the ridge like a storm, her blade reigniting with furious brilliance. The wounded shoulder slowed her, but not enough. She carved through the swarm, each strike splitting chitin and molten blood. The great beast shrieked, staggering under her blows. Marcus stumbled to her side, firing into the gap she opened. "I thought you were here to kill me," he shouted over the chaos. Her teeth bared in something between a snarl and a smile. "I still might survive this first." For the first time, they fought together. It wasn't planned, it didn't need to be. Her strikes created openings, his gunfire exploited them. His traps slowed the swarm, her strength finished what he started. The planet itself became their battlefield, and side by side they pushed back the horrors it had birthed. When at last the great beast fell, its body collapsing in a shuddering heap, both stood drenched in sweat and blood that wasn't their own. Marcus leaned against a broken girder, chest heaving. "Guess the planet hates you too." Soraka's blade dimmed. She studied him, amber eyes glowing faintly in the stormlight. "You could have left me to die," she said softly. "Instead, you saved me." "Why?" He gave a bitter laugh. "Because survival isn't the same as living. I don't want to become what I hate." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, almost too quiet to hear, she murmured, "Perhaps you are not prey after all." They built a fragile camp that night inside the carcass of the fallen beast. The stench was unbearable, but the thick hide shielded them from the storm. Marcus patched his wounds with scavenged medgel. Soraka tended to her cracked armor, every motion precise. Hours passed in uneasy silence until Marcus spoke. "How long have you been hunting me?" "Since the war ended," she answered without looking up. "I was chosen to finish what the fleet began. Proof that no human lived." "And if you failed?" She hesitated. "I do not fail." Marcus smirked despite himself. "You sound like one of us." That earned him a sharp glance, but no retort. Instead, she asked, "What drives you? You should be dead 100 times over. Why endure?" He stared into the flickering light of their fire. "Because if I quit, then all the others really did die for nothing." The storm howled outside, but within the beast's hollow shell, two enemies sat across from one another, no longer predator and prey, but survivors bound by necessity. For the first time, Marcus saw not just the hunter, but the woman beneath the armor. And Soraka, for the first time, allowed herself to wonder if everything she had been told about humans was a lie. The camp didn't last. By dawn, the sky was alive with fire. Streaks of light tore through the storm clouds, dropped ships. The High Council had arrived. Marcus cursed under his breath as the ground quaked with their landing. He grabbed his rifle, though the battery was nearly spent. "Your friends?" Soraka's jaw tightened. "Not friends. Enforcers." The ships descended in perfect formation, their hulls marked with the imperial crest. Soldiers poured out in disciplined ranks, their armor gleaming, weapons humming with charged energy. And at their center stood an emissary, tall, robed in scarlet, face hidden behind a mask that shimmered with static. The voice that emerged was cold, amplified to echo across the canyon. "Commander Soraka. You were sent to extinguish the last human. Instead, you fight beside him. Explain yourself." Soraka stood tall, her blade unlit but her stance unshaken. "This human has survived what should be impossible. He is not prey. He is proof that the council is wrong." The emissary's mask pulsed with contempt. "Then you are compromised. Your failure is treason." He raised a hand. 100 weapons locked onto them. Marcus swallowed hard. "So, we're surrounded. Got a plan?" Soraka looked at him, and for the first time since the hunt began, her lips curved in a small, dangerous smile. "Yes. We kill them all." The canyon erupted in fire. Soraka ignited her blade, its light cutting through soldiers like a beacon of fury. She moved faster than Marcus had ever seen, every strike precise, every movement a storm. The soldiers fell in waves, but more surged forward. Marcus fought at her side, his rifle spitting weak bursts until it died in his hands. He ripped a weapon from a fallen soldier, firing until his arms shook. He set off charges he'd hidden earlier, collapsing ridges and burying squads beneath rubble. The emissary's voice thundered through the chaos. "Commander, your fate is sealed." "Not today," Soraka snarled. The emissary unleashed a beam of searing light, aimed for Marcus. She moved without thinking, throwing herself into its path. Her armor cracked, glowing with heat, but she held her ground, tendrils flaring as if alive with defiance. Marcus lunged forward, firing a stolen pistol straight into the emitter on the emissary's chest. The beam died in a flash of sparks, and the robed figure crumpled to the ground. The soldiers faltered. Their leader was down, their formation broken. "Now!" Soraka shouted. They sprinted through the chaos, cutting a path to one of the drop ships. Plasma bolts screamed past, scorching the air, but together they fought their way aboard. Soraka slammed her hand on the control panel. The ship recognized her genetic signature and roared to life. The hatch sealed. Engines flared. And in a burst of fire, the vessel shot skyward, leaving the canyon and the army behind. Inside the cockpit, silence fell at last. Marcus collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, chest heaving, hands trembling. He glanced at her, armor scorched, wounds raw, yet standing tall as ever. "You could have killed me 100 times," he said hoarsely. "But you didn't." Her golden eyes met his. "You could have left me to die. But you didn't." They sat in silence, the hum of the ship carrying them into the stars. Two survivors. Two fugitives. Bound now not by duty or blood, but by choice. Soraka turned her gaze to the stars ahead. "The council will hunt us both. There is no going back." Marcus leaned back, exhaustion threatening to pull him under. Yet he smiled, small and weary. "Then let's give them something to chase." The galaxy was vast, but whispers spread faster than fleets. On conquered worlds, slaves murmured in secret, that the Empire's greatest hunter had failed, not because she was defeated, but because she had chosen her prey. That a human, the last of his kind, had outlasted extinction and fought his way into the stars. The council silenced reports, erased records, and executed officers who spoke the truth. But the silence only made the rumors stronger. Children of broken colonies looked to the night sky and asked, if one human still lives, can others? Soldiers muttered in their barracks, if the hunter turned traitor, can the Empire be broken? And somewhere in the shadows, rebels began to believe. Aboard the stolen ship, Marcus stood at the viewport, staring at the endless sweep of stars. His reflection was ghost-like in the glass, gaunt, scarred, yet alive. More alive than he had ever felt during the war. Behind him, Soraka approached, her presence filling the small cabin. No longer hunter, no longer goddess of war. Just a woman marked by choice. They will hunt us, she said quietly. They already are, Marcus replied. He didn't turn. But I've been hunted before. She studied him in silence, then stepped closer, close enough for their reflections to merge in the glass. What are you now, Marcus Hale? Soldier? Fugitive? He exhaled slowly, his hand brushing the dog tags at his chest. Alive. And for now, that's enough. Her lips curved faintly, neither smile nor snarl, but something in between. Then we survive. Together. And so the story began. Of the human who refused to die. Of the hunter who chose him instead of her empire. Of two fugitives rewriting their place in the stars. A story the council could not bury, no matter how deeply they tried. Because legends do not die. They grow.